All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are now going to talk about the NFL Draft as it is this week. It is Thursday, and it's a big time. It's a it's a time where your team, whatever team you root for. Obviously, there could be more additions made to the team, post the draft, but this is kind of like the last major thing with teams, make major additions to the rosters before we really start to ramp up for next season. And there's obviously other things to look forward to. I mean, when the schedule comes out, that's going to happen, in a little less than a month. But yeah, and the Tennessee Titans will be making the first pick in the draft, and I think we all kind of know where they're leaning towards at the moment, and that is opting to draft Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami, with the first pick. That seems where things are trending towards, but could be a smokescreen. Could be a smokescreen. You got to keep an eye on that. And then we were talking about it in our production meeting. Then the draft really starts when we get to number two, because you kind of what the at least the first two picks, because the Giants could throw a curveball at us. Like, I think I've said all along, I think they should take best player available, but they could take Shador Sanders at 3, or the Browns could take Shador Sanders at 2. But I think the Browns are definitely taking Travis Hunter. I think we've kind of seen the reports out there. It looks like that's what they're leaning towards. Now, could they take Abdul Carter? Sure. Um, but I do think the way things are looking right now, I think they're probably going to take Travis Hunter. So then with the Giants, again, I've said all along, I think they should take best player available. So that would be Abdul Carter. And then you have quite the defensive line. Giants defense, is already, good. I mean, it was a little disappointing last year. Hopefully it could be better with the secondary being improved. But, if you had Abdul Carter, I mean, that just makes their defense that much better. And then, after that, you get to the Patriots. What are the Patriots going to do? Because they obviously would love to get Travis Hunter. Could we see a scenario in which the Patriots maybe, trade down? Could someone trade up? Because, you do have, several teams that are interested in Ashton Genty. I think he's going to go to the Raiders. But, there's other teams, like, we're hearing that the Jaguars could take him at 5, which I think would be the wrong decision. I feel like running back is not a position they should address at 5. I mean, yes, he is the best prospect at that position, but I just feel like with Jacksonville, there's so many other needs for this team. On defense, on the offensive line, like, I just feel like they should address one of those positions, and maybe take a run. I mean, they could take a running back in the later rounds because it's such a rich class, but maybe that's something they don't want to do. They want to take best player available. Um, but with the Patriots, I mean, they could opt to take an offensive lineman, because the offensive line was not very good for the Patriots last year, and that was one of the reasons why Drake May, didn't go in right away. Um, with the Jaguars, you could take someone on defense. So we'll see, we'll see. But yes, I have the Raiders taking Ashton Genty. The Jets, it's interesting what they could do, because they could opt to take Tyler Warren, also Armand Membo from Missouri. I hope I pronounced that right. The tackle, to play opposite of Olu Fashanu. I mean, I think that, listen, they went with the smart pick last year. My friends obviously wanted Brock Bowers, but they took Fashanu, and he looks like he's going to be a good player. And the offensive line is very important. And the Jets are going to be a team that's going to run the football more. We've heard Aaron Glenn say he wants Justin Fields to also really play the quarterback position and not just be a runner, but you want to be able to, and you want to be able to protect them. So But also another team to watch out for Tyler Warren is also the Colts. They could try to trade up maybe if they want to get him if he starts to fall, if he falls past the Jets. But they could also take a Colston Loveland from Michigan. So that's possible. Cowboys are interesting because they need a running back, but they also do need another receiver opposite of CeeDee Lamb. And at least when I'm looking at Tankathon's recent mock draft, and they got Tetairoa McMillan from Arizona going to the Cowboys. I mean, I think that would be a good pick for them because, again, they do need a receiver opposite of CeeDee Lamb, and I think, that could be a good spot for him. Dak Prescott's coming back. But we'll see. I mean, if the Cowboys, if Gentry somehow finds a way to the Cowboys, I mean, that's a no-brainer for them. And, if the offensive line is solid, I mean, Gentry could have a big year in Dallas. But I don't think he's going to fall that far to Dallas, unless Dallas wants to trade up. Shedeur Sanders, I mean, it's going to be interesting where he could end up. Because I do think the Giants are going to opt to not take him with the third pick. And he's going to fall a little bit. And I think he's going to fall to the Saints. I think that's where, right now, that's a popular pick for him. Popular destination is Shedeur Sanders falling to 9 and the Saints taking him because they don't know what the future holds for Derek Carr because he could opt to have surgery on his shoulder and then he's out for the year. And then what do the Saints do at quarterback? And you have a new regime now. Well, not really a new regime, but a new head coach in Kellen Moore. And maybe Kellen Moore wants, his own guy. And they could go with Shedeur Sanders. So, that's possible. With the Bears, I mean, the Bears at 10, it's interesting. They could do a lot of different things. I think for the Bears, maybe you take, I mean, I don't know. An interior lineman, could they do that at 10? Or maybe they wait on that, but Bears, it could be another, I mean, if they were able to get Gentry, that would be quite the spot for him too. With all that talent there, and now you got Ben Johnson as the head coach. So that's a possibility. But we'll have to see. The 49ers, offensive line could be a position of need, that they address. Corner. You have a couple of teams that, the 49ers maybe could use a corner. The Dolphins could maybe use a corner now with them, probably moving off of Jalen Ramsey. The Bengals, they'll be taking a defensive player, I would imagine. Now, how many quarterbacks do we think could be taken in the first round? I think at least 2. Maybe you see 3. But you're not going to see what you saw last year. And I know we've also had this conversation, too, in our production meetings. Shedeur Sanders falls out of the first round. I don't think so. He's going to be taken in the first round. I mean, if he slides past the Saints, then it starts to get interesting. But I think, he's going to be taken within the first 10 picks. Anthony in the chat, what's going on, man? He says, if Sanders falls to 13, what teams are behind Miami are desperate for a quarterback and would be willing to give up a third-round pick? Well, let's see here. So the Colts, I don't think they're going to try to take one of the tight ends. Falcons, no. Cardinals, no. Bengals, no. Seahawks, well, they're not desperate. They have Sam Darnold. They could be taking someone in the later rounds. Buccaneers, no. Broncos, no. The Steelers, maybe. But they might stay where they're at. And then everybody else after that, all playoff teams, none of them are looking to get a quarterback in the first round. Now, we could see a potential, trade back into the first round. Like if the Giants and the Browns likely passing on a quarterback, they could maybe look to try to trade back into the first round and get a quarterback that way. But I think the Dolphins are probably, staying at 13 unless a team trades up to take, somebody else that's not a quarterback. How about Cleveland? Well, I mean, I don't think Cleveland is going to try to trade back into the first round and trade all the way up to 13. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. I think if You see one of these teams, like if it's the Giants or Cleveland, I think they're trading back in if, when we get to like the late first round. Like they're not trading for the 13th pick because that's going to take a lot. He also says, I think Cleveland would be desperate enough to give up their 2 second-round picks and their third this year. And there's a lot of assets. But I don't really, I don't see it. I don't see it. I have to disagree. I did want to bring up a couple of other prospects. So Jalen Milroe, obviously not going to be a quarterback that gets taken in the first round. That'd be a little bit of a shocker. But there's scouts talking about or several coaches and scouts telling Tom Pelissero that Jalen Milroe is the greatest runner of the football they've ever evaluated at the quarterback position. Now, take that with a grain of salt, obviously, because he hasn't stepped on an NFL field yet. But I will say this: I do like Jalen Milroe as a runner. Watching some of his games, but very inconsistent as a passer. And I think if he ends up in the right situation, maybe a team can get more out of him. Look, you don't want to compare him to Lamar Jackson because Lamar Jackson is further along in his career, and he's won a couple of MVPs, and he's really improved as a passer. From when he first started. When he first started, yeah, he wasn't great as a passer. I wouldn't say he's at that elite level of throwing the football, but as a complete quarterback, as a complete player, he is an elite quarterback. But I still wouldn't I wouldn't put him up with Josh Allen as a passer, Patrick Mahomes at his peak. There's better throwers of the football than Lamar Jackson, but he's gotten a lot better. And could we see something like that with Jalen Milroe? Well, again, it's possible, but he has to be in the right situation. So, yeah, we'll see where he ends up. But yeah, he's not going to go until I guess the earliest would be the third round. Is that even then? Is that saying too much? Also, is it possible that we could see, like we saw AJ Brown get traded on draft night? Could we see, some players get traded? Like George Pickens. Could George Pickens get traded? Jair Alexander. He's another possibility because again, there are teams that need corners. And could the Packers look to trade him on draft night? To a team that needs a corner, like the Bengals, like the Dolphins. We'll have to wait and see. But I think that's pretty much what I wanted to touch upon with the draft. Again, it's on Thursday. It's in Green Bay. Looking forward to it. It is going to be during the Knicks game, which it's going to be tough to. We'll make it work to focus on both, but we'll make it work. And yeah, I'm really curious to see how the first 3 picks go. Now, my friend sent a tweet in our group chat from Adam Schefter, and this is actually from per Peter Schrager, who's now with ESPN. The Browns and Giants are fielding trade calls for both of their picks. I hope the Giants don't trade out of 3. I think you got to take best player available. You have to. And then you try to get the quarterback. But that's just me. But let me know what you guys think about the draft coming up. What do you see your teams doing? Let me know in the comments. So before we go to break, I just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining. Between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers, we appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day. So any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So when we come back from our next break, we will get back into talking about the NBA playoffs. We will talk about last night's game between the Clippers and the Nuggets. The Clippers picking up the win, backed by a huge performance by Kawhi Leonard. We will get into that, and we'll talk about the games that are on tonight when we return. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.